Good blogging day.
Good
Today.
blogging day.
Yeah,
blogging
today
day.
we have with us Miss Kelly
Mm-hmm.
and Mr. Shelby.
Mr. Shelby.
And
Mr.
me.
Shelby.
And just I got with my hat on. This is probably a pretty important day. Well, it is the most important day for this country
Yes.
because it's the significance of democracy.
That's right.
Yeah, and as long as you can vote your opinions and it counts, then that's democracy.
That is democracy.
Yeah, all the other stuff you can then just wash away.
Right.
You know. And argue about it for
We're probably going to have some time to argue this one a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
for another 4 years. You can
Yeah.
argue about it and do all kinds of strange stuff. Anyway, there's I put down a couple of notes here, questions actually for you two and me, and number one, and number two, and number three is are we on the road to deciding which direction we are going?
Are we on the road to deciding the direction we're going?
Yeah.
It's a very broad
That is a
question.
very
It's
broad question.
Yeah, but here's the thing, I can't read it.
I'll read it because I think it's an interesting question, and I'm guessing that what started this group of questions for you was the fact that Boeing just settled on their contract. Is that accurate?
No,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well,
but
forget it
that
then.
is an interesting thing that they did.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
38% worth too.
Yeah.
It's good grief.
And the question that he's written down here is your boss sets your pay according to some standard and sets a production goal. Your pay does not change with increased production. There's no incentive for you to increase production beyond that assigned. I think that's an interesting statement in that I look at it a little differently than that.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, I do, in that if you're paid to do a job,
Uh-huh.
the production really shouldn't have anything, the production of the company shouldn't really have anything to do with what you're paid to do. This is just my opinion. So if you are paid, let's say if you're paid to put out 300 plastic dishes on an assembly line a week,
Uh-huh.
and that's that when they hire you, they say we're going to pay you X amount of dollars and we need out of you 300 of these a week.
Okay.
And you achieve those 300, are they going to pay you the rest of the week without showing up to produce? If you, let's say you got the 300 done in 2 days, then if that's your only goal, then you don't have to show up and do any more, right?
That's right.
That's right. But I think it is difficult to put production next to pay increase. I really do. I think that those days are well behind us. I'll give you an example for our company. One of the things that Shelby does is we're a very different company in that we're basically a talent agency in a roundabout way.
Yeah, what?
A talent agency.
Talent.
Yeah, I mean, in essence.
Oh,
but-
can I play piano or something?
Yeah, absolutely. But we're not going to lock somebody into 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, but within your job description, these things need to be accomplished. If it takes you 10 hours to accomplish them, then it takes you 10 hours to accomplish them. And then
Right.
you can come back to that person and say, you know, this should really only be taking you 8 hours to accomplish that. But I think, you know, a production line, much like Boeing, is very different than most businesses. You know, if it's a clerical business or a
Big product.
help me with what I'm trying to say, then it's different, you know. But if a company's production goes up, just like our company, if we gain more auctions, that doesn't necessarily mean that the people that are running the business, that are hired to do certain jobs, should get their pay increased. Instead, what happens is they get bonuses at the end of the year. These guys look at what they made and they say, okay, well, we did fair or we didn't do fair, so
Did you read the next two?
yeah, your pay, your pay is a function of your production.
That's what you're talking about.
Right,
Yes.
right. But this first one says, should your pay increase if you go beyond production assigned? So that would be, you know, more of a production line thing.
I
Maybe.
think this comes down to like philosophy, right? And I think it depends on the job you're in and if it's something that you take joy in doing, right? Because I think if you come in as a competent employee, you see things that can be improved or increased production, and you make that idea or concept known, and it leads to more production, you are inherently going to get looked
Rewarded,
at
yeah.
and rewarded, whether that be a higher job, more compensation, more responsibility, whatever the case may be. I think like in this country right now, we have individuals that don't feel that their jobs matter, right? So if I show up to McDonald's and I know that I'm going to make all the burgers that are ordered and I'm just doing the thing, if you're going in and doing the bare minimum, you're not going to show up as somebody that looks like they are up for advancement in
Right.
payroll or responsibility. Thus, you're never going to move forward. So, your boss sets your pay at a base level. This is the bare minimum. If you go above and beyond and go to that next level, you are going to reap those benefits. Maybe not at that company, but you're going to be able to build a resume based on what you've learned that's going to put you on a trajectory for more pay increase in the future.
So what projecting that philosophy on, what would you call that?
In terms, what would I call that?
In terms of,
I'm with you, but I feel like I'm missing. You're coming on a point, aren't you?
yeah,
The reward?
the man from Argentina was telling us we were terribly in danger of
Yeah. Good
Doing-
memory.
doing number one.
Yes. Yeah.
And he called that, what do you call it?
Not. I want to say socialism. Are you like
Yes.
socialism?
Yeah, I think it is
Communism,
socialism.
maybe
That's it.
somewhere.
Socialism.
Socialism, yeah.
Yeah, but we won't call it communism because that's kind of messed up.
I should know my political philosophy better than I do, admittedly.
I mean-
but I think like the problem with Argentina is essentially they went to a more socialist structure,
Yeah.
and no one was incentivized to do any better. You know, America, capitalist society is built in a way where if you work,
the
if you
other-
go above and beyond and give 110%, you're eventually going to be rewarded. Maybe not at that company, maybe at another company, but you're going to grow to a point where you can make a bigger impact, and with that bigger impact comes greater compensation.
And it may take you 5, 10 years to get there.
Yep.
So that's number 2. It's
Yeah.
capitalist.
hmm
And number 3 is
Is your pay negotiated?
yeah.
But steady. I think that this kind of.
What would you like?
I think people should be rewarded for. I think people should be rewarded for the impact they are making in whatever environment they're in.
Okay.
So, if I recently left a job this year that I felt as if I was making an impact,
Uh-huh.
but it wasn't being shown in moving into a more leadership role or better compensation. And because I had been in that same environment for so long, and I felt like I was making it, when I realized that I was not able to ascend to that next level through this agency specifically, I found that I needed to step away because I was not given what I felt to be the correct opportunity
Well,
to
you
grow
were
as a
protecting
person.
your value. And I think that that's an important thing for a person to do in the workforce, protect their value. If in fact they are, like you said, you know, you've been at a place 10 years and, and this, okay, this is what should be next.
Right.
And this obviously isn't going to be next. I need to protect my value. I think there's
but I think
different
that-
levels of workers
But
too.
but I think that gets to the core of the issue here, right? Like, do you continue to? I'm going to use this example. Sorry for my language, but are you going to continue to shovel shit, knowing that you're going to have to shovel that same shit at the same rate for 10 years?
Right.
And the answer is no.
No.
Which is why socialism doesn't
With a
work.
different
Right.
horse.
With a different horse, right?
Yeah.
But if you're shoveling shit, knowing that if I shovel this shit for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
on the 6th year, there's a chance that I could have a greater impact. You are okay to shovel that shit.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So I
A
think
goal. You have a
If
goal.
you have the
you have a
patience.
goal if you have the patience.
patience.
And you know, a manager would say, well, you know, you make more than enough money and you're doing the job.
And you
Well,
should be happy to be shoveling the shit.
at that point, if I feel like I'm not able to grow as an employee, I need to look at other opportunity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
So you're shoved into a kind of a socialist point of view at that point. This is money, that's this shit.
But I think we also have to
Shit.
recognize our workforce has different levels of workers within it. In a functioning workforce, it has to. It has to have those leaders that see the next thing and push the company towards the next thing. It has to have those people that are happy with shoveling the shit for 10 years, right?
Right.
Because we're always going to need that.
Yeah.
Right? And it has to have these things to function, because without it, what do you have?
right, but I think that any employee has to have, there has to be a greater goal in mind to keep that person engaged and sharp. In other words, you are okay to work the 20-hour or $20 an hour job because you know that if you put in the time after 5 years, you may have the opportunity to then be a manager, control a team. I don't like the word control. Lead a team.
Lead a
You know
team.
what I mean? But I mean, it's the process. So the fact that you're like staying at one spot without any forward momentum causes lack of faith in the system.
Could that also cause negative behavior?
Yes.
Yes, which negative behavior in a company is cancer, but it's very common. Let's say you're in a job that doesn't really have growth opportunity. The growth is different. Maybe it's a personal growth,
Right.
but there's really nothing to manage. There's really nothing to, so those workers, to keep them from developing that negative attitude, have to have those positive attaboys, as well as the financial, as well as those things, because the growth within a company isn't possible. You're growing, the company may be growing, but the mechanics of it do not have a spot for growth.
What about employee-owned companies?
I don't know enough to speak one way or another on that. I think that, I believe, is Walmart an employee-owned company, or were they, or something like
I
that?
can't speak to that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I was
but,
thinking of the plywood companies that for a while became company-owned.
Winco, not,
Yeah, and they seem to be okay with it,
Right.
as long as it's,
So the reason I like the verbiage of like company own or employee owned company is that what you're trying to do is you are trying to allow the boots on the ground to buy into the higher vision, right? And I like that idea.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a profit split at the end of the year, cool. If it's like voting on the next direction of the company, like it goes right back to today's election day, right?
Yeah.
I need to feel that my vote makes a difference. Even if it doesn't, I, as a member in our society, need to feel that I have say in what is happening. And because we feel that we have the say, whether we do or not, we are okay to buy into whomever that next leader is moving forward. Because we all voted, we all did the thing, and here's the decision.
yeah.
Right? So I think that employee owned company is pretty beneficial.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's Winco that's an employee.
Yeah, and I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think
not
you're
Walmart,
right.
Winco.
Winco, yeah.
Walmart's a huge conglomerate.
What's Winco?
Winco is a grocery
Oh, that's
store.
that's the big, huge warehouses that you pass by when you're driving down the road.
Yeah.
Well, they're a grocery company,
Yeah.
and you know I should shop them more, but they don't have. I don't believe they have grocery pickup, and you turned me on to that and I
COVID
now
happened. You can't go back
you
now.
can't go back.
Can't go
and
back.
so
yeah.
you know if they were to develop that, I would probably use Winco. But
Maybe
so
they'll
Winco,
listen
maybe
to
you
this
should think
law
about
if
that
you
unless they
suppose.
already are
What?
doing it.
yeah.
But I think that it's
So
I love that thought.
So
Yeah.
like this comes back, in my opinion, it kind of comes back to like what is the drive of somebody in one of these jobs. I will say after putting in a lot of time into my current career path, that I have had to come to terms with the fact that you have to further invest in yourself in order to get to that next level, right? Like there was a time there where I did feel not disenfranchised, but frustrated in my career path. So what I did is I went and I did a coding boot camp. Well, that had nothing to do with my current career path.
But it made you feel good.
Will it ever help me? I don't know. But what I do know is that it gave me the confidence to put on my resume, hey, now I can do this thing.
Yeah.
And with that confidence came the ability to troubleshoot a lot of technical issues that paid off in a way that I wouldn't have ever expected. But what I'm getting at is like, if you take the opportunity to invest in yourself, you're going to get out of that 9 to 5 grind, whether it be within the confines of your employer or outside of that employer that you're
Maybe
currently
that's
working
something
with.
employers need to think about then, because if you are in a company where there isn't that ladder, right? I mean, the pay obviously changes. You know, I mean,
Right.
you always reevaluate your employees' pay, but maybe then, as a company owner or leader in that company, even the big ones, you look at it and you say, okay, there isn't that. We need to offer education, you know, to our employees and say, for whatever it is that would make them tick, we're going to pay, you know, 35% or whatever the number would be of your further education for, you know, there's some classes out there for this, that, the other thing. Could be public speaking, could be anything that has you function to make those people feel like that company is behind you,
I work
regardless of
for,
what you do.
for a company part-time. I worked for lots of companies part-time. It was international correspondence schools. And you'd be surprised how somebody just interested in say, STEAM would take further courses because their object was that further course would help them get a greater evaluation toward management or higher pay, that sort of thing. But that was a selling point for those schools, and that has been a selling point for education. Unfortunately, we got a whole lot more education these days when we do opportunity. I'm not sure that's true, but maybe it is. I don't know. If it is true, then that's a problem. Because, you can't have everybody have a PhD is doing hamburgers. That won't work very well.
But what if it was for self-betterment? This is an interesting
Well, that's
thing.
another
What
thing.
what if it has
yeah.
nothing to do with, let's say you are a fisherman, a die-hard fisherman. This is gonna sound stupid, but,
Yeah, well,
and there is a local course on tying flies, or building fishing rods, or whatever. And your employee comes to you and he says, you know what, I'd like to take this course, would you be willing to pay for half of it? If you know that it's for the betterment of your person and they are going to be happier in the job place because they are more fulfilled personally, that might benefit that company to investing, because at that point, you're investing in your employee, the
Yeah.
person. You're investing in the person, not necessarily what they can give back to you, understanding if you are willing to split it with them or pay a third or whatever, understanding that you are building this person. That person now realizes you care about them. They are going to give you more production.
I suppose
That's pretty good. That's just like you going to needing to get out there and go to these courses, or these
Yeah.
things that we,
Professional trainings.
yeah, professional training things. Those will better you as a person, make you
Yeah.
a stronger leader. Those are worth the investment
Yeah.
because you're investing in the person.
I think it has to come back to the person. Like, you need to find somebody that has that philosophy. Like, for example, like if you want to be compensated more, you have to do more. You have to provide a better skill set in order to execute for the company. The company makes more money, more profit, they're going to look at you in a favorable manner. Company makes less profit, we're battening down the hatches, less
Yeah.
spend, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say, like, in a perfect world, yes, you would want your employee to invest in education of to whatever extent it is. In actuality, I think the individual has to take it upon themselves to do that, right? So even if you got to pay out of pocket to like make that work, you're doing it.
Yeah.
And if your company buys in, great. You know,
Right.
like Starbucks has always been touted as one of those companies that takes care of its people because they do provide percentage
They do.
cost or something like that on their higher education.
On their higher education.
Right?
Yep.
So even if I'm like even if I'm making coffees from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., if I can like become a better benefit to the company, they're going to compensate it. And I think that's allowed them to maintain a higher quality of employee than some of the other coffee shops that we've seen around. So,
I had just a brain thought that I want to talk to you about later now.
There's a
the brain thought?
A brain thought.
Oh, brain thoughts. Welcome to Brain Thoughts with Ivan.
Brain thoughts with the
brain
Ivan.
thought, brain fart.
Brain fart.
thought.
We have
Brain
those
farts with
too.
Ivan.
Yeah, anyway, what it winds up as, what we're all talking about here is not all one way or all the other way.
Right.
It's a combination of ways, which is what a lot of Northern European countries have, and our people do some of that. The unions, that's another factor in this whole thing is the unions belonging to a union, or what you do in order to do you have to have an apprenticeship in order to belong to a union? That's something that, an employee, if you can get them to employ that, then in Germany, if you're going to be a machinist, you spend a year with a file and a piece of metal making something. And or you're learning about metal and this sort of thing. That was kind of an extreme statements there, but
Well, in the short time I lived in Italy, this was 30 years ago, or 35 years ago. Whoa. But, man, Actually, wow, that was a long
it, don't
freaking
say it.
time ago, 37 years ago. Woo! Anyway, the family that we rented our apartment from, they lived on the ground floor. And they had 4 daughters, and I just loved this family. But within that family, and this was a common thing in Italy anyway, they knew all their children were not going to go to higher education. So the ones that they had 2 that did, and those 2 that did at their sophomore year, the trajectory for their future changed, and they focused on those 2 getting their college degrees.
Yeah.
The other 2 were not chosen, but they were okay with it because the understanding also was that these college educated people are going to benefit the family after they go out into the
Yeah.
world and get that. And so the 2 that didn't get to go were also going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
You know, something that you said that I thought was interesting is different ways, right? That's the beauty with this country that, you know, I've got so many text messages this morning about the election, right? And
Coming.
it is. And my response to all of them is, I believe in our country. I don't believe in Republicans. I don't believe in Democrats. I don't believe in any of that junk anymore because I don't believe they have my best interest. They have their
Yeah.
personal growth at
Right.
mind. However, you and I get the rare opportunity in the fall and the spring to walk into real America. Real America, which is where people have something that they care about and they're coming together to raise funds to either cure something or support something or support someone, and they all leave everything at the door and they come together for good. And I believe that is more out there than the media, the politicians, than they want us to think. And that's why they've tried to create this fear of today. Look, it doesn't matter who wins today. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Whoever's going to win is going to win. I live in a country where everybody gets to vote, right? That's 18 or older or isn't in prison. But,
That's-
so I have to respect what they choose. And the beauty is there are so many pathways to getting what you want.
Yeah.
You know, like we all talked about different ways to incentivize an employee, different ways for companies to be successful. There are so many pathways, and that is what we should be mindful of protecting, is the thousands and thousands of pathways to success.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, you're
think.
right. It's
And we got the
it
lottery,
makes
for
a
God's sake.
difference. It makes a difference about how you think about the country
Mm-hmm.
and a democracy. Every little thing you do doesn't matter whether democracy. Yes, well, that's taking our democracy away. Well, no, you know, or that's helping our democracy. No, you gotta be conservative. No, you gotta be liberal. No.
Yeah.
You know, it's a combination of all of those things. It's a mixed soup. And when we get to the point of like just this first one, that's dangerous. That's what that man from Argentina was talking about. We're headed that way.
Right.
And the second one is dangerous too, because it doesn't provide it doesn't provide a means to get the first one and the second one, which is the third one. You know, that's what we. I went to diesel school so I could go to medical school.
Mm.
I never worked as a diesel mechanic, although I did pretty well at the school, number one. And I never went to medical school because I couldn't afford it. And anyway, it all got mixed up, you know. And
But you know, I picked cucumbers, I picked strawberries, I picked raspberries when I was a kid. 14, you know, you did it. And that's how you made extra money, but that's also how crops were handled.
Yeah.
I think that the weird place that we're at in America right now is that there's haves and have-nots, and what we tend to forget as people that operate in this day and age in America specifically is a lot of the hard work that's gone into the past. Something that's been on my mind recently, and I don't remember where I saw this or how accurate it is. So if you got to fact check me, you can. But in World War II, what I heard is that the American products were so poorly made in terms of warfare. Their tanks were poorly made in comparison to the German tanks.
Yeah.
Their machine guns were poorly made in comparison to the German machine guns.
Yeah.
And what happened is when the Americans would overtake some of the German soldiers, they would drop their American machine guns and pick up the German machine guns.
I never heard that.
The tanks were so poorly made that the only reason the Americans overcame the Germans is because they outproduced them. Every 5 tanks for America was 1 for Germany in World War II.
Wow.
So what does that speak to? That speaks to America doing whatever they had to do to win this war.
To win the war.
To ramp up production in America, where we are sending so much artillery overseas to dominate the playing field. That work ethic is something that I don't know is universal in America today. There's not a lot of people that are going to work to flip burgers that says this is for the greater good and we're going to come together and make the world a better place. And because they don't have that same gusto in their work, it could mean some pretty rough times for America.
Yeah.
If you're going to your job and you're literally just clocking in and clocking out and that's all you're doing and you don't care, that's gonna manifest in a lot of different ways in American society. And I think that's really a crossroads that we're gonna have to deal with in the next couple 10 years.
I would
Putin
agree.
deals with that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the socialist countries deal with that all the time because there's certain hoops that they jump through, and that's it, you know.
Yeah.
I hope everybody took just as much time voting for their governor, their representatives, their congressmen. I hope they took just as much time voting for those people as they did for the presidents.
Yeah,
Shelby,
yeah.
It did not.
because those are the move changers.
My ballot was not fully complete,
Yeah,
and
you're
I'm
you're
not alone.
You're the majority.
I think so. Yeah, I think
You're the
so. But I'm
majority.
also not a guy that's going to go in and just randomly hire and fire people.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
I consulted with my wife. She had some opinions on some of the matters. I followed her intuition based on what she had heard in the grapevine. I knew of some of the candidates that I wanted to support. I'm not party loyal.
Yep,
I'm not the
nope.
guy that's going to go in and
Me
hit
neither.
all R or RD. I'm just not that guy. I know they're
No.
out there. That's not me. But it's interesting. It's interesting. I know I could talk about the election for another hour, but we're in an interesting time in this country.
It's an
right
interesting time to be alive.
It really
To be
is.
honest with you, that we are seeing some historical stuff in the last 10 years and in the future 10 years.
now. Yeah, and I think the scariest part for me is the dissolving of the narrative. In other words, like, we all watch the same news channels for so long that you could make an opinion and we were all talking on similar facts. Right now, we're getting our information from social media, whatever news source you plug into, and there's many to choose from, podcasts that can be skewed one way or the other, and there's no vetting on that information source.
Except ours.
Ours is
Except
very
for
good.
ours. Ours is
very
perfect.
good podcast.
Don't fact check us.
Very informational.
Don't fact check us. But I guess my point is like when I talk to people about this upcoming election, I realize that I am better informed than most.
Yes.
And they're making decisions with less information. And I think it's pretty important. I think the president of the country is pretty important personally. So I've done more work than I feel like many of the people that I've asked about it. So what does that say?
Yeah.
Like, that says we have people just randomly yeah, this sounds good. Let's do that. You know, and you think to yourself, wow. You know,
Yeah.
back in the day, they wouldn't let women
Yep.
or people of color vote.
Yep.
And that sounds really bad in today's society.
Mm-hmm.
But what they were doing is they were only allowing those of a certain status give input on the government.
Yep.
So, was it wrong to say those people don't get a vote? Yes, it was. But now are we just watching the mob make decisions and be like, ah? Kind of feels that way.
Yeah.
So I don't have the right answer, but
For-
it's weird.
For,
Acres?
no,
No.
the four ranges of belief, of
The knowing, the
yeah, of knowing.
That's right.
And that's the first one. Oh, everybody else doing it, so well, you know. Why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lemmings.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're a very articulate person. Most people aren't that articulate about the politics in this country or what's happening in this country. So I would encourage you to
Run for president.
go over that. Well, maybe you have to give a few steps
Might-
before
might
he
have
gets to president.
We gotta walk
Yeah.
before we run, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
I've considered it. I haven't made any actionable steps on it, but I've thought about it from time to time.
Yeah,
Politics.
You want to endorse me?
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Deal.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think something that you touch on there too is like Mark and I sit down and we don't cast the same vote. 99% of our vote is the same,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't do it, you know. We read it together. We say, well, what do you know? What have you heard? Well, this is what I know. This is what, you know, and we really munch it out there a little bit. But these initiatives that were written,
Boy, the
written-
wording on those initiatives.
these
were-
initiatives that
Oof.
were written were intentionally written to confuse people, whether you vote yes or no.
Oh, and your opinion influenced me on a few of those.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I read it like 3 times and I was like, oh, this is what she's talking about. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta
interesting.
really dig
Yeah.
deep in it, and then you gotta reread it, and then you gotta go, here's what they want me to believe, but here's what it says.
But also, it's written in a way that feels center. But
Be
here's,
this generation and be the generation below me.
yeah,
You would have maybe not voted on those initiatives
Mhm.
the way you truly believe because you wouldn't have understood them.
it's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
And that is sad.
law's hard, man. Law and governing is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like and the reason it's so difficult is because like, oh, you want clean energy? Sure, but then like the ramifications of like actually getting to clean energy and
Yeah.
like
As well as how much of that is really being spent on clean energy.
Well, and let's call a spade a spade. Like just because we want clean energy doesn't mean we found the most efficient way to do it right out of the gate. You know what I
Right.
mean? You look at these windmill farms and like we got some issues, guys. Like it did not come out the way everyone was hoping it would.
No.
And that's no fault of anybody's but living through it and making the decision next.
Right.
So it's
You gotta
it's
fail
not
forward.
easy.
You gotta fail forward.
You
You gotta
have
fail
to.
forward.
Yeah.
Always fail forward.
do what?
Fail forward.
Fail forward.
It's really important for the
Fail
human.
safe.
It's important for companies. If you fail, fail forward. That's okay. That one didn't work.
Fail safe.
Fail again. Keep failing until
Take risks.
take risks.
Do epic shit.
Do epic shit, Andrew Brown.
Yeah. But now just think about what you said in relationship to the candidates that are running.
I don't, you know, as far as
Yeah.
Yeah.
failing forward,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Oh, God.
I would say strap in. It's gonna be one of those nights.
Oh, God.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I
it's
blocked
gonna be
off
an
the
interesting night.
afternoon knowing it was election day. I'm like, oh, I'll sit down and watch it. And then today's here, and I'm like, I can't. There's no way I'm gonna be able to watch
No,
like
I'm
5
making
hours of that
no,
tonight.
no. I mean, I'm
For-
decorating for Christmas.
For a guy that hasn't been drinking, I might break.
Yeah,
might break
yeah.
some rules
I
tonight.
mean, we're
yeah.
having a cocktail tonight, regardless of
Heck
how
yeah.
it goes.
Heck
Regardless
yeah.
of how it goes, we're gonna have half of our country pissed off.
Buy yourself some Precept wines.
Yeah.
Buy some Brown
Oh,
family.
Brown family. Excuse
Buy
me.
some do epic shit Brown family wine.
That's right.
Okay, folks, that's probably as far as we go today.
We wore him out.
Yeah, and,
I love this handout situation.
Yes, I do too.
Well, it gives us a guide,
It does.
Yeah.
and it makes me think about what that is ahead of time.
Yeah.
But, let's, be sure and vote. Vote.
Yes.
Yeah. And this will be
Vote.
up on the internet in
That's
10 minutes.
democracy, is to vote. It's a vote that counts.
And say, Dad, go ahead and say it. Say, do epic shit.
Do what shit?
Say, do epic shit.
Do epic shit.
There you go. He just said it.
Here to your first. Do epic shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah. Send an email.
Yes. What is your email?
I don't know.
The Ivan1933@gmail.com.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
See you next time.
Okay. See you next time.